Have you noticed something a bit strange happening? On the one hand, we're seeing people in Islamic authoritarian regimes protesting, infuriated at the society they have to live in, hating it, trying to bring it down, and right now, painfully so, it hasn't yet come to its knees and still hoping and waiting on America to get involved. But while we're seeing that and the potential, in some ways, it's a bit of a mirroring of the Soviet Union collapsing, of people realizing this ideology, this way of governance, way of forming society, of having, of structuring morality is not working. At the same time, we're seeing a encouragement, a festering, a permission for extremism in the West to grow. And communities, sadly, and this is documented in polling, in data, there are, Muslim communities in the West, there are significant percentages of them are sympathetic to extremism, have an extremism issue. And we see, look, literally just last month, the Bondi Beach massacre, people wondering what is happening in our midst. How do we allow this culture to exist and grow there? What I want to ask is, how is it that on the one hand, you have this happening in the Middle East? The UAE, it was reported recently, going to stop funding bursaries for their students to go to study in the UK because of a fear that they will become radicalized towards Islamic extremism. Just think how insane that is. How do we make sense of this? And I think getting to the heart of this actually touches on Jewish destiny, believe it or not. Because what's happening is this. On the one hand, people in the Muslim world who live in Muslim authoritarian regimes or know what it's like or have had many people in their midst that support that are realizing this is not working. It's collapsing. On the other hand, there seems to be a climate that allows for it, that even encourages it in the West. A suicidal tolerance. How does that happen? The reason it happens is because basically Western secularism creates a vacuum. There's a deep lack of moral direction in the West because we haven't rooted it and grounded ourselves in a transcendent morality, in a meaningful way, in a way that's discussed in public, that people are comfortable to discuss in public for far too long. And so, without a sense of transcendent meaning, which all human beings need, you create a vacuum, and nature abhors a vacuum. So what happens? People who may well have skewed transcendent moralities, they'll come in and they'll wipe the floor. They'll get in a lot of converts through the door. Why? Because people need a sense of meaning, a sense of community, a sense of tribe. It's a flawed way of thinking that too many, particularly liberals in the West, have. They think that if people just have material abundance, then they'll be fine. Bin Laden was very wealthy, came from a very wealthy family. People need more than just material wealth. In fact, we all know that. We all know that if our lives are full of material wealth, but we don't have strong relationships, we don't have a sense of purpose and meaning, direction, knowing why I'm here, you're going to end up in a very dark headspace. So yeah, they may have a skewed sense of what God wants of you. The Islamic Islamists, the Islamic extremists, but they still have a sense of this is what God wants of you. They give you a sense of tribe and meaning. And the West kind of had this at one point. Certainly America did, because it was grounded in a culture of biblical morality, but slowly over time, we've drifted from it. So what I'm saying is that right now, with some ways, we're seeing two failed systems. in some ways kind of embodied by Islam on the one hand. Yes, taken to extremes. I know there's plenty of people who live moderate lives that believe in Islam as well. But a system ultimately, and a culture ultimately, that is drawn upon certain texts, a certain way of doing religion, that is causing all kinds of problems. And then on the other hand, a Western world, which was originally based on biblical morality, but has slowly lost that and basically just said, do whatever you want, as long as you don't harm someone else. Problem is, we're far too soft when people do try to harm themselves. This is why we're starting to see a resurgence of Christianity. The problem, though, is that if you actually look at America and the founding of America, the founders of America, they drew upon almost exclusively ideas and quotes from the Old Testament. You can't really base a society, a structure, a form of government, a cohesive, concrete, detailed morality on the New Testament. There's just not enough there, really. Its fundamental focus is on forgiveness, basically, and grace. By the way, too much of forgiveness and grace, when you also need justice and law and order, can also be very dangerous, as we have seen. This is where I believe the Jewish people are going to come into their destined role. And I think it's no accident, by the way, no accident that Israel is situated at the meeting point of East and West, of the Middle East and the West. Because that's what the Jewish people's role has been and is and always will be, which is to be a light unto the nations, to show the nations the way of God. I know I'm speaking in generalities here, but Christianity and Islam as the offshoots of Judaism, of the Torah, we are the Rambam, Maimonides, medieval rabbi and sage, taught us that from a Jewish perspective, Christianity and Islam served as agents to spread the word of the fundamental truths of the Torah. Most people through Christianity and Islam today believe in the God of Abraham. They believe in the story of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, of the Jewish people going to Mount Sinai, the Ten Commandments. They believe that one day there will be an end of days and a messianic figure. But also, from a Jewish perspective, we believe they also some of the messages got a little bit lost in translation or taken in a different direction. With Islam, Judaism basically holds in balance mercy and justice, compassion and justice. And Islam went with the justice and the judgment side very too much to an extreme, and Christianity, the mercy and the kindness, to the other extreme. You've got to hold both in balance. You need kindness and compassion for the maintenance of human dignity and human care. You need justice for the maintenance of meaning and order, actually protecting society as well. And thus, it's a form of kindness too. And so the Jewish people's role is to provide that light and that direction. And we've done it in some ways indirectly through these offshoots. But now our role is to really lead the way. Because we're seeing, with the collapse of these ideologies, whether it's Islamic authoritarianism or secularism in the West, that neither really is giving us the answer. And people debate each other. They say, you see, your religious extremism shows it doesn't work. And the religious extremists say to the secularists, you see, you're leading everyone towards depression and meaninglessness. Both sides, both systems have failed. And the Jewish people now, I believe, have to actively come into a leadership role. Who else is going to provide that moral clarity and leadership? The United Nations, celebrity culture, the media, academia? Certainly not. That's something that's happened in tandem with the rise of conflict in the Middle East since October 7th. We've seen the moral bankruptcy of all these leading lights of Western morality and Western culture. The Torah is there to pave the way. Take modesty, for example. The Muslim world can take that to an extreme. The secular world can take that to an extreme. I can think of so many points. How you balance religion and politics. How you have a healthy relationship with God and serve God. Not focusing on heaven, but rather focusing on what you can do for him, bringing heaven down to earth. There's so many ways in which the Jewish people can truly provide that clarity, that often balance, as I say, between justice and compassion. But that's what I think is happening ultimately. And what's amazing is that it's not just happening because we even have to say anything. People are also just coming to realize that. They're realizing, if the Iranians themselves are realizing this is not working. People in the West are realizing this is not working. That's quite messianic in nature. We believe that ultimately, in the end, evil will just defeat itself. It will destroy itself. It will acknowledge its own bankruptcy. But that's only half the equation. The other half, then, is for the Jewish people to step into their divine role, which of course culminates in the coming of the Moshiach, the Messiah, and the messianic vision that we believe is coming. And if you haven't already, check out our documentary called Moshiach, the Jewish idea of the Messiah, who he is, how life will look like after his coming, and why we believe his coming is very close indeed. You can watch the trailer for that right now. I'll play it for you. And if you want to watch it in full, just click the link below in the video description. For thousands of years, the Jewish people have carried a promise that history is not a random cycle, that suffering and darkness and exile are not the end of the story, that one day the world will be redeemed and the Messiah, the Moshiach in Hebrew, will come. But what does that actually mean? Who is Moshiach? When will he come? How will we know he's real? Why would God design a world that waits so long for redemption in the first place? And what will life feel like after he comes? With AI and machines beginning to replace work, maybe we're already catching a glimpse. But then what will we do with our days? The prophet spoke of that world long ago. In this groundbreaking JTV Plus documentary, we uncover the truth about the Jewish vision of the Messiah, who he is, why it matters, and why his coming could be closer than you think. Join us as we reveal the truth about history's most anticipated figure. To watch this JTV Plus documentary and access much more premium content, click on the link in the video description.